In a quiet suburban town just outside Seattle lived a woman named Elena Harper. She was 34 years old, a high school history teacher, and a single mother to her 8-year-old daughter, Lily. To everyone who knew her, Elena looked like any ordinary woman, soft-spoken, always smiling, carrying a coffee mug and a stack of papers. But behind that gentle smile was a fire most people never saw. Elena had not always lived such a quiet life. 10 years ago, she was someone else entirely. But that part of her story, she had buried it deep. She never spoke about it. Not to her colleagues, not to her neighbors, and definitely not to little Lily. Every morning, Elena would wake up at 5:30, make breakfast for Lily, pack her lunch, and drive her to school. Then she would go to Roosevelt High School and teach American history to restless teenagers. In the evenings, she helped Lily with homework, read her bedtime stories, and kissed her goodnight. Life was simple, predictable, safe. But on a rainy Thursday evening in October, everything began to change. Elena was driving home after parent-teacher meetings when her phone rang. The number was unknown. She almost didn't pick it up, but something made her answer. Hello? There was a pause. Then a low, calm voice spoke. Elena, it's been a long time. Do you remember me? Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. That voice, she hadn't heard it in almost 9 years. Her heart started pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Who is this? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. You know exactly who this is, the man replied. And I know where you live now. I know where Lily goes to school. I know the blue bicycle she rides every evening. The car swerved slightly. Elena quickly pulled over to the side of the road. Rain hammered against the windshield. What do you want? She whispered. The man chuckled softly. I want what you took from me. You have 30 days to return it. If you don't, I will take something from you, something you can never get back. The line went dead. Elena sat there in the darkness, rain pouring down, her whole body shaking. She hadn't heard that voice since the day she walked away from her old life, the life where she had done something incredibly brave and incredibly dangerous. Music becomes slightly tense. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Elena sat alone in her small kitchen with a cup of cold coffee. She opened the bottom drawer of her desk, a drawer she hadn't touched in years. Inside was a small metal box. She unlocked it with trembling fingers. Inside the box were 3 things: a faded photograph of her younger self standing with a group of women in front of a large warehouse, an old USB drive, and a silver necklace with a small pendant shaped like a broken chain. She stared at the photograph for a long time. In the picture, she looked fearless. Her eyes were sharp, her jaw set. That was the Elena she had left behind. She whispered to herself, "Not again. I can't let this touch Lily." But deep down, she knew the past had finally caught up with her. Pause for emotional beat. Soft piano. The next morning, Elena dropped Lily at school like nothing had happened. She smiled, hugged her tight, and said, "Have a beautiful day, my love." But as soon as Lily disappeared inside the school gates, Elena's smile faded. She drove straight to the only person she still trusted from her old life, her best friend Sarah, who now ran a small cafe downtown. When Sarah saw Elena's face, she immediately knew something was wrong. "Elena, what happened?" Elena's voice cracked as she spoke for the first time in years about the secret she had been carrying. "Marcus found me." Sarah's face went pale. "Oh my God, are you sure?" Elena nodded. "He threatened Lily." Sarah leaned forward, her eyes serious. "Then you have only 2 choices, Elena. Run or fight. But if you fight, you know what that means. You'll have to become her again, the woman you swore you would never be." Elena looked out the cafe window at the falling rain. Her hands were still shaking, but something inside her, that old fire, was slowly waking up. She took a deep breath and said the words she never thought she would say again. "I'm not running this time." Music swells with determination. That was only the beginning, because what Elena didn't know yet was that the man on the phone, Marcus, was not acting alone. He was part of something much bigger, something that involved powerful people, hidden money, and a secret that could destroy many lives, including hers. And the only person standing in their way was a quiet schoolteacher who once risked everything to do what was right. Elena left Sarah's cafe with a racing heart, but a strangely clear mind. For the first time in years, she wasn't just a mother and a teacher. Something deeper was stirring inside her, the version of herself she had locked away after that fateful night 9 years ago. She drove straight home, locked the doors, and sat down at her laptop. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long moment before she typed in a name she had hoped she would never need again. Marcus Hale. The search results flooded the screen. Marcus had changed. He was no longer the small-time operator she once knew. He was now the right-hand man of a powerful businessman named Victor Lang, a man who owned half the shipping ports on the West Coast. On paper, Victor was a respected philanthropist. In reality, he was something much darker. Elena knew the truth because she had once worked for him. 9 years ago, Elena wasn't a history teacher. She was an accountant at Lang Shipping, a quiet, brilliant woman who noticed numbers that didn't add up. Millions of dollars were being moved through fake companies. At first, she thought it was simple tax evasion, but the deeper she dug, the more dangerous it became. She discovered that Victor Lang wasn't just smuggling money, he was smuggling people. Young women and girls from Eastern Europe, promised good jobs, but sold into horror. Elena had found the proof: names, dates, bank transfers, and worst of all, video evidence. Instead of staying silent like everyone else, Elena did the unthinkable. She copied everything onto that small USB drive, took photos of documents, and anonymously sent the evidence to the FBI. But before the authorities could act, Victor's men found out. They came for her one rainy night. That night, Elena made a choice that changed her life forever. She didn't run immediately. She stayed just long enough to help 17 young women escape from a locked warehouse near the port. She risked her own life, guiding them through back alleys in the pouring rain while Victor's guards were searching for her. One of the girls was only 15, the same age Lily would be one day. That single act of courage had cost her everything. She had to fake her death, change her name, and disappear. She left behind her old identity, her friends, and the man she once loved, all to keep those girls safe and to protect the evidence. And now, Marcus had found her. That evening, when Lily came home from school, Elena hugged Lily, her daughter, a little tighter than usual. "Mommy, why are you squeezing me so hard?" Lily asked with a giggle. Elena smiled through the tears she was holding back. "Because you're my whole world, baby. Never forget that." After putting Lily to bed, Elena opened the metal box again. She picked up the silver necklace with the broken chain pendant. It was a gift from one of the girls she had saved, a symbol that said, "The chain is broken because of you." She put the necklace on for the first time in years. The cold metal against her skin felt like a reminder she had been brave once. She could be brave again. But courage alone wasn't enough. She needed a plan. The next 3 days, Elena lived 2 lives. During the day, she was the smiling teacher who graded papers and joked with students. At night, after Lily slept, she became someone else. She used old contacts she thought were long gone. She reached out to a former colleague who owed her a favor, a hacker named Riley, who now worked as a freelance cybersecurity expert. They met in secret at a 24-hour diner on the outskirts of town. Riley, a nervous young man in his late 20s, stared at her in disbelief when she slid the USB drive across the table. "You still have this?" he whispered. "After all these years?" Elena nodded. "I need to know if it's still usable, and I need to know what Marcus is planning." Riley plugged the drive into his laptop. His eyes widened as files opened. "Elena, this is bigger than you think. Victor Lang isn't just involved in trafficking anymore. He's using his shipping empire to move something new, high-grade weapons, and Marcus is running the entire West Coast operation. If this evidence gets out, they both go down for life." Elena leaned forward, her voice steady but filled with quiet fire. "Then I have to make sure it gets out, but not before I protect my daughter." Riley looked at her with respect. "You know what this means, right? Once you start this again, there's no going back. They will come for you with everything they have." Elena touched the broken chain necklace around her neck and said softly, "I didn't break then. I won't break now." But protecting Lily while fighting a powerful criminal network was almost impossible. Elena knew she couldn't do it alone. So she made the hardest decision of her life. She called her estranged sister, Claire, the only family she had left. Claire lived in Portland and hadn't spoken to Elena in over 7 years. Their last conversation had ended in anger when Elena disappeared without explanation. When Claire answered the phone, her voice was cold at first. "Elena, is that really you?" "Claire, I need your help. It's about Lily." There was a long silence. "What's going on?" Elena's voice cracked with emotion for the first time. "I'm in danger. Lily is in danger. I need you to take her for a few weeks, just until I finish something I started a long time ago." Claire didn't ask too many questions. She could hear the fear and strength mixed in her sister's voice. "I'll drive down tomorrow, but Elena, whatever this is, you better come back. Lily needs her mother." Elena closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I promise I'll come back. I have to." The next morning, Elena packed a small bag for Lily with her favorite toys and clothes. When Claire arrived, Elena hugged her daughter so tightly that Lily started to worry. "Mommy, are you going somewhere?" Elena knelt down, looked into her innocent eyes, and said with all the love in her heart, "Mommy has to do something very important, something to make the world a little safer for you and other kids. Aunt Claire is going to take care of you for a little while. I'll call you every single day, okay?" Lily nodded, though she looked scared. "Be brave, Mommy." Elena smiled through the tears she was holding back. "I learned how to be brave from you, sweetheart." As Claire's car drove away with Lily waving from the back seat, Elena stood alone in her driveway. The house felt empty. The silence was heavy. But in that moment, something shifted inside her. The quiet school teacher was gone. The woman who once saved 17 lives in one night was waking up again. And this time, she wasn't just running from the past. She was going straight towards it. With Lily safe in Portland with her sister Claire, Elena felt a strange mix of relief and crushing emptiness. The house was too quiet. Every corner reminded her of her daughter's laughter, her small footsteps, her innocent questions. But she knew this was the only way to keep her safe. She stood in the middle of Lily's bedroom, holding her daughter's favorite teddy bear. She whispered softly, "I'm doing this for you, baby. All of it." Then she wiped her tears, changed into dark clothes, and got to work. First step, gather more information without being noticed. Elena drove to an old storage unit on the edge of town, a place she had rented under a fake name years ago. Inside was a duffel bag she hadn't touched since she disappeared. She opened it and found what she needed: a burner phone, a small encrypted laptop, cash, and a taser she hoped she wouldn't have to use. She called Riley again. "I need eyes on Marcus. Can you track his movements without alerting him?" Riley's voice was hesitant on the other end. "Elena, this is dangerous. These guys have serious security. If they catch even a hint that you're digging—" "I know the risk," she replied calmly, "but I also know what they're capable of. I saw it with my own eyes 9 years ago. I won't let them hurt more families." Riley sighed, but agreed to help. Within hours, he sent her a secure link. Marcus was meeting Victor Lang tonight at a private warehouse near the port of Seattle, the same area where Elena had once helped those 17 girls escape. Elena made a decision. She would go there, not to confront them, not yet, but to observe, to understand how big this had become. That night, under a cold drizzle, Elena parked her car 2 blocks away and approached the warehouse on foot. She wore a black hoodie, kept her head low, and moved like a shadow, skills she thought she had forgotten, but her body remembered. She found a spot behind some shipping containers and waited. What she saw sent chills down her spine. Marcus stood talking to Victor Lang, a tall, sharp-featured man in an expensive coat. Around them were at least a dozen armed men. Large crates were being loaded onto trucks, but it wasn't just weapons. Elena noticed something else. Young women being moved from one container to another. Their hands were tied. Their faces showed pure terror. Her stomach twisted. Flashback hit her hard. She remembered that night 9 years ago. The screams, the rain, the way one girl had grabbed her hand and whispered, "Thank you, you're an angel," before disappearing into the darkness. Elena cried the entire way as she ran, knowing she might never see her own family again. Back in the present, tears burned in her eyes, but she forced herself to stay focused. She pulled out her phone and started recording discreetly. The evidence was piling up. But then, her worst fear happened. One of the guards spotted movement. "Hey, who's there?" Elena's heart slammed against her ribs. She turned and ran. Footsteps pounded behind her. Shouts filled the night air. "Stop her!" She sprinted through the maze of containers, her breath coming in short gasps. A bullet whizzed past her ear. She ducked behind a stack of crates, pulled out the taser, and waited. When the first guard rounded the corner, she struck, fast and precise. He dropped with a grunt. She didn't wait. She kept running. Another guard appeared. This one was bigger. He grabbed her arm. Elena twisted, used her momentum, and slammed her elbow into his face. The taser sparked again. He fell. But she knew she couldn't fight them all. Just as more men closed in, she spotted a narrow gap between 2 containers and slipped through. She ran toward the fence, climbed it desperately, tearing her sleeve and cutting her hand on the barbed wire. Blood dripped, but she didn't stop. She reached her car, started the engine, and sped away into the night. Her hands shook on the steering wheel. Blood smeared the wheel. In the rearview mirror, she saw headlights in the distance. They were following. She took sharp turns, weaved through traffic, and finally lost them near the highway. Only then did she pull over in a dark parking lot, breathing heavily. She looked at her bleeding hand and the broken chain necklace still around her neck. "I'm still here," she whispered to herself. "I'm still fighting." But the close escape made one thing crystal clear. They now knew someone was watching them, and it wouldn't take Marcus long to connect the dots back to her. The next morning, Elena woke up with a new determination burning in her chest. She went to the school as usual. She couldn't afford to raise suspicion. But during her free period, she locked herself in the staff bathroom and called Claire. "How's Lily?" "She keeps asking for you," Claire said gently. "She drew a picture of you being a superhero. Elena, whatever you're doing, please be careful." Elena closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Tell her Mommy is being brave, just like she told me to be." After the call, Elena made another hard choice. She reached out to the one she swore she would never contact again, David, the man she had loved and left behind 9 years ago. He was now a detective in the Seattle PD. She sent him a short encrypted message. "It's Elena. I'm alive. Marcus and Victor are active again. I have new evidence.
"Meet me tonight at the old pier. Come alone." She didn't know if he would come. She didn't even know if he still hated her for disappearing without a word, but she had no choice. That evening, as the sun set over the water, Elena stood on the deserted pier, her injured hand bandaged, the silver necklace shining faintly under the streetlights. She heard footsteps approaching. A tall man in a leather jacket stepped into the light. It was David. His face was harder now, older, but his eyes widened in shock when he saw her. "Elena, my God, it's really you!" For a moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of 9 lost years hung between them. Then Elena said quietly, her voice thick with emotion, "I never stopped thinking about you, David, but I had to protect you too. I'm sorry." David took a step closer, his voice rough. "You faked your death. You let me mourn you. Why are you back now?" Elena looked him straight in the eyes that once held so much love. "Because they found me, and this time I'm not running alone." She pulled out the new recordings from the warehouse and handed him a small drive. "This is bigger than before. They're trafficking weapons now and still moving people. I need your help to stop them for good." David stared at the drive, then back at her. He could see the fire in her eyes, the same fire that had made him fall in love with her all those years ago. He took the drive. "You always were the bravest person I ever met," he said softly, "even when it broke my heart." Elena smiled sadly. "Being brave doesn't mean you don't feel fear, David. It means you keep going even when you're terrified, because someone has to." As they stood there on the pier, the wind whipping around them, a new alliance was forming. But unknown to them, Marcus's men were already watching from a distance. The net was closing in, and Elena's greatest test was still to come.
The old pier creaked under their feet as the cold wind blew off the water. Elena stood facing David, the man she had once loved and left behind. For a few precious seconds, the world felt almost still, but that stillness was an illusion. David slipped the small drive into his jacket pocket, his eyes never leaving hers. "Elena, if what you're saying is true, we need to bring this to the FBI immediately. This isn't something you handle alone." Elena shook her head slowly. "Not yet. If we move too fast, they'll destroy the evidence and disappear. I've seen how they work. Victor Lang has people inside the system. We need to be smarter." David stepped closer, his voice low and urgent. "You've already been shot at once. Look at your hand. You're bleeding through the bandage. How much more are you willing to risk?" Before Elena could answer, her burner phone vibrated in her pocket. Only one person had this number, Riley. She answered quickly. "Riley? What's wrong?" Riley's voice was panicked, barely above a whisper. "Elena, they know. Somehow they traced the storage unit. 2 men just broke into it 10 minutes ago. They took everything, the bag, the laptop, everything. And Elena, they left a message written on the wall." Elena's blood ran cold. What did it say? Riley swallowed hard. It said, "Tick-tock, teacher, 18 days left. We know where the little girl is." The phone nearly slipped from her hand. David saw the terror flash across her face and immediately moved closer. "Elena, talk to me." She looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear for the first time. "They know about Lily. They know she's in Portland." The words hung heavy in the salty air. For a moment, the only sound was the waves crashing against the pier pillars. David's face hardened. "We need to get her to safety right now. I can arrange protective custody." "No," Elena cut him off sharply. "If we involve official channels too early, Victor will find out. He has connections everywhere. We do this my way or we lose everything." She turned and started walking fast toward the end of the pier, David right behind her. Suddenly, her instincts screamed. Something wasn't right. She stopped dead. "David, stop." In the distance, under the faint glow of a streetlight, she saw a black SUV parked at the far end of the parking lot.
It hadn't been there when she arrived. The headlights were off, but the engine was running, a low, quiet rumble. David followed her gaze. "Get behind me," he whispered, reaching for the gun at his hip. Before either of them could move, the SUV's lights flashed on, blinding them for a split second. Two men stepped out, calm, professional, wearing dark clothes. One of them raised a hand, not in threat, but in a mocking wave. Then came the voice through a speaker, Marcus's voice, cold and amused. "Hello again, Elena. Nice to see you haven't lost your touch, running through warehouses, climbing fences, just like old times." Elena's heart hammered. She scanned the area desperately. There was nowhere to run. The pier was a dead end. Marcus continued, his tone almost playful. "You really thought you could hide forever? That little USB drive you're so proud of? It's cute, but we both know the real prize is you. You're the only living witness who can connect everything. So here's my new offer." The speaker crackled. "Bring me the original evidence, all of it, in the next 72 hours, or I'll pay little Lily a personal visit, and trust me, she won't be coming home after that." The line went silent. One of the men tossed something onto the ground, a small Polaroid photo. It fluttered in the wind before landing near Elena's feet. It was a picture of Lily playing in Claire's backyard in Portland, taken that very afternoon. Elena felt her knees weaken. The photo trembled in her hands. David pulled her back gently. "Elena, breathe. We're not alone in this." But Elena wasn't listening. Rage and fear mixed inside her like poison. She stepped forward, her voice ringing out across the pier with surprising strength. "Marcus, you listen to me. You can come after me. You can threaten me, but if you touch my daughter, I will burn your entire world to the ground. I did it once. I'll do it again." A low laugh echoed from the speaker. "Brave words, teacher, but bravery didn't save you last time. Let's see if it saves your little girl." The SUV doors slammed shut. The vehicle reversed slowly, then sped away into the night, leaving Elena and David standing alone under the flickering pier lights. They drove back to Elena's house in complete silence. David kept checking the rearview mirror every second. Elena stared out the window, her bandaged hand clenched into a fist so tight that fresh blood seeped through the bandage. When they stepped inside, the house felt colder than ever. Elena went straight to Lily's room and sat on the edge of the small bed. She picked up the teddy bear again and held it against her chest. "I promised I would protect you," she whispered, tears finally breaking free. "I promised." David stood in the doorway, watching her with pain in his eyes. "Elena, you don't have to carry this alone anymore. Let me help. Let the system help." She looked up at him, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes burning with unbreakable resolve. "The system failed those girls 9 years ago, David. It failed me. I'm not trusting it with my daughter's life." She stood up slowly, wiping her face. 72 hours, that's all we have. In these 72 hours, I need to finish what I started. I need to make sure Victor Lang and Marcus can never hurt another mother's child again. David nodded, though worry was etched deep on his face. "Then tell me the plan, because if we're doing this, we're doing it together." Elena walked to the kitchen table and spread out a map of the city, along with the few notes she still had. Her voice became steady, almost frighteningly calm. "Step 1. We get the original hard evidence from the only place they don't know about. Step 2, we expose them in a way they can't silence. And step 3, she paused, looking David straight in the eyes. If they come for Lily, I become the hunter instead of the hunted. Outside the window, a shadow moved briefly under the streetlight. Someone was watching the house. Elena didn't see it, but the noose was tightening faster than she realized. Every tick of the clock now felt like a countdown to something terrible, and the woman who had once refused to break was about to face her darkest night yet.
That was all the time Elena had left before Marcus made good on his threat. She stood in her dimly lit kitchen, staring at the maps spread across the table. Red circles marked every known location connected to Victor Lang's operation. Her bandaged hand throbbed with pain, but she ignored it. Pain was nothing compared to the fear gripping her heart. David paced behind her, checking his phone every few minutes. "I still think we should bring in the FBI task force," he said. "I have contacts who can move fast and quiet." Elena didn't look up. "Victor has spent years buying those contacts, David. One wrong call and Lily dies. I won't gamble with my daughter's life." She picked up a small key from the metal box, the last thing she had kept hidden all these years. It belonged to a safe deposit box in a tiny bank branch 2 hours outside Seattle, under a name no one would ever connect to her. "That's where the original evidence is," she said quietly. "Paper documents, hard drives, and the master video file. Everything that can bury Victor and Marcus forever." David stopped pacing. "Then we go tonight, right now." Elena shook her head. "No, not together. If they're watching me, they'll follow. I need you to do something else." She turned to face him, her eyes steady despite the storm inside. "I need you to go to Portland. Watch over Lily and Claire. If anything feels wrong, anything at all, get them out. Take them somewhere safe. Promise me." David's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but he saw the unbreakable will in her eyes, the same look she had the night she disappeared 9 years ago. "I promise," he said finally. "But Elena, come back to us. Don't you dare become a martyr." Elena gave him a small, sad smile. "Being a mother means you stop being afraid of dying. You only become afraid of leaving your child behind." They embraced for a long moment. It wasn't romantic, it was raw. Two broken people holding on to whatever strength they had left. Then David left. The sound of his car fading into the night left Elena completely alone. She waited until 2 a.m. when the streets were empty. Dressed in black, she slipped out the back door and took an old bicycle from the neighbor's shed. No car, no traceable phone. Just the key in her pocket and the broken chain necklace around her neck. The ride to the bank took nearly 3 hours through cold back roads. Every shadow made her flinch. Every distant car light felt like eyes following her. Twice she hid behind trees when headlights appeared. By the time she reached the small town, her legs burned and her injured hand was bleeding again. But she didn't stop. The bank opened at 9 a.m. Elena waited outside in the freezing morning air, pretending to be a tired traveler. When the doors finally opened, she walked in calmly and asked for access to her safe deposit box. The manager led her to the vault. Inside the small private room, Elena opened the box with trembling fingers. There it was, everything. Thick folders of documents, 3 encrypted hard drives, and a small black USB stick labeled in her own handwriting, "The Truth." She transferred everything into a waterproof backpack she had brought. As she zipped it shut, a strange calm washed over her. This was the evidence that had cost her everything once. Now it was her only weapon. She was about to leave when her burner phone buzzed. It was Riley. "Elena, bad news. Marcus just increased the bounty on you. $250,000 to anyone who brings you in alive. His men are everywhere. Ports, highways, even bus stations. And they put a tracker on your old car. They're heading toward your house right now." Elena's stomach dropped. She whispered, "They're coming to my home." She hung up, slung the backpack over her shoulder, and walked out of the bank as normally as she could. But the moment she stepped outside, she felt it. Eyes on her. Across the street, a man in a gray jacket pretended to read a newspaper. Another sat in a parked van, watching her too obviously. They had found her. Elena's heart raced. She couldn't run back to the bicycle, too slow. She couldn't call David, it might put Lily in more danger. She had only one chance. She walked straight toward the man with the newspaper, forcing a casual smile. "Excuse me," she said loudly. "Do you know if there's a bus station nearby?" The man looked startled. Before he could react, Elena swung her backpack hard, catching him in the face. As he stumbled, she sprinted toward the van. The driver panicked and tried to start the engine. Elena reached the door, yanked it open, and pressed her taser against his neck. He convulsed and slumped. She dragged him out, jumped into the driver's seat, and floored the accelerator. Tires screeched as the van shot forward. In the rearview mirror, she saw the first man shouting into a radio. The chase was on. Elena weaved through the small-town streets, the van shaking violently. 2 black SUVs appeared behind her, gaining fast. Bullets shattered the side mirror. Glass rained down. She took a sharp turn onto a narrow forest road, branches scraping the sides of the van. The road twisted and turned. One SUV lost control and crashed into a tree. The second kept coming. Elena's hands were slippery with blood and sweat. Her mind flashed to Lily's face. "I'm coming back to you," she whispered through gritted teeth. Up ahead, the road ended at an old logging bridge over a deep ravine. The bridge was marked unsafe, closed. She had no choice. Elena pushed the van faster. The wooden planks groaned and cracked under the weight. Halfway across, she heard a loud snap. The bridge was collapsing. Elena floored it one last time. The van flew off the edge just as the entire structure gave way behind her. The van crashed hard on the other side, rolling once before stopping in a cloud of dust. Elena coughed, blood trickling from her forehead. The backpack was still on her back, safe. She stumbled out of the wrecked van and looked back. The second SUV had stopped at the broken edge of the bridge. The men inside stared at her in disbelief. For now, she had escaped, but she knew it was only temporary. Exhausted, injured, and alone, Elena disappeared into the dense forest, clutching the evidence that could end a criminal empire. Every step hurt. Every breath burned. Yet deep inside, a quiet voice kept repeating, "I will not break." She had the proof. She had survived the chase, but the clock was still ticking, and Marcus was angrier than ever. The final confrontation was coming.
Elena stumbled through the dense forest, branches whipping against her face. Her forehead bled from the crash. Every breath felt like fire in her lungs. The heavy backpack full of evidence slammed against her back with every step. She could hear them behind her, Marcus's men crashing through the trees like wolves on the hunt. "Spread out! She can't have gone far!" a rough voice shouted. Elena dropped behind a fallen log, pressing her body into the wet mud. Her heart pounded so loudly she was sure they could hear it. She clutched the broken chain necklace like a lifeline and whispered through gritted teeth, "For Lily, I have to make it." Footsteps grew closer. A flashlight beam swept just inches above her head. She held her breath. One wrong move and it was over. The guard passed. Elena waited 3 agonizing seconds, then rose silently and ran deeper into the forest. Her legs screamed in protest, but she pushed harder. Suddenly, her foot caught on a root. She fell hard, sliding down a muddy slope. Pain exploded in her ankle. She bit her lip to stop from crying out. Above her, she heard a voice on the radio. "We lost visual, but she's injured. She won't get far." Elena forced herself up. Tears of pain streamed down her face, mixing with blood and dirt. "I'm not done yet," she growled to herself. She limped forward until she reached an old abandoned logging cabin. The door was half rotten. She slipped inside, barricading it with a heavy table. Through a cracked window, she saw flashlights moving in the distance. They were circling back. Her burner phone had only 8% battery left. She dialed Riley with shaking fingers. "Riley, I have the evidence, but they're right behind me. I need an exit plan." Riley's voice was frantic.
"Elena, you're all over their comms. They've called in reinforcements. There's a dirt road 2 miles north of your location. I'm sending a friend, an old truck driver I trust. He'll be there in 40 minutes, but you have to reach that road alive." 40 minutes felt like a lifetime. Elena looked at her swollen ankle and bleeding hand. She had no choice. She tore a strip of cloth from her shirt, tied it tightly around her ankle for support, and stood up. The pain was blinding, but she pictured Lily's face, her daughter's innocent eyes saying, "Be brave, Mommy." That image gave her strength. She slipped out the back of the cabin just as the front door burst open. Gunshots rang out. Bullets splintered the wood behind her. Elena ran, limping, staggering, but never stopping. She zigzagged between trees as more shots echoed through the forest. One bullet grazed her shoulder, burning like fire. She gasped but kept moving. "Stop running, Elena," Marcus's voice boomed through a megaphone. "You can't save her. You couldn't even save yourself last time." His words hit like a knife in her chest. Memories flooded her mind. The night 9 years ago when she had helped those terrified girls escape. The screams, the rain, the moment she realized she had to disappear forever. "I did save them, and I will save my daughter too." She burst out of the tree line onto the narrow dirt road, chest heaving. No sign of the truck yet. Headlights appeared in the distance, but they weren't the truck. 2 black SUVs were racing toward her. Her eyes darted around desperately. There was nowhere to hide. She did the only thing she could think of. She stepped into the middle of the road, raised her arms, and waited. The SUVs screeched to a halt just 10 feet away. Marcus stepped out of the lead vehicle, flanked by 4 armed men. He looked exactly as she remembered, cold, arrogant, and dangerous. "Well, well," he sneered. The brave little teacher finally ran out of road. Elena stood tall despite the pain, blood dripping from her shoulder and forehead. "You want the evidence?" she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "It's in this bag." She slowly lowered the backpack to the ground. Marcus smiled triumphantly. "Smart girl. Now kick it over." Elena looked him dead in the eyes. "You know what? I'm tired of running from men like you." In one lightning-fast motion, she grabbed the taser from her waistband and fired it at the nearest guard. He dropped instantly. Chaos erupted. Gunshots exploded around her. Elena dove behind one of the SUVs as bullets ricocheted off the metal. She crawled under the vehicle, heart slamming, and slashed the tires of the second SUV with a sharp piece of metal she had picked up in the forest. Marcus shouted orders. "Get her, alive!" Elena rolled out from under the car on the other side. Her injured ankle gave way and she fell hard. A guard grabbed her by the hair and yanked her up. Pain blinded her, but she drove her elbow into his throat. He released her with a choke. Another guard tackled her to the ground. They struggled fiercely. Elena fought like a mother possessed, biting, scratching, kicking. She managed to grab his gun for a split second and fired once into the air. The gunshot echoed. In that brief moment of shock, she broke free and limped toward the tree line again. But Marcus was faster. He raised his pistol and fired. The bullet struck Elena in the side. She gasped, staggering forward as white-hot pain ripped through her body. She fell to her knees in the dirt. Blood soaked her shirt. Marcus walked up slowly, gun pointed at her head. "Game over, Elena. Where's the real evidence?" Elena looked up at him, blood on her lips, eyes still burning with defiance. She smiled weakly. "You'll never find it, because I already sent copies to people you can't buy." Marcus's face twisted in rage. He raised the gun higher. At that exact moment, bright headlights flooded the road. An old, battered truck barreled toward them at full speed. Riley's friend was behind the wheel.
The truck smashed into the side of one SUV, sending it spinning. In the chaos, Elena summoned every last ounce of strength. She grabbed the backpack, staggered to her feet, and threw herself into the open truck door. "Go!" she screamed. The truck roared forward, bullets shattering the rear window. Elena collapsed onto the seat, clutching her bleeding side, the backpack safe in her arms. As the truck sped down the downed road, Elena looked back at the shrinking figures of Marcus and his men. Tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from raw emotion. She whispered hoarsely, "I'm still here. I'm still fighting. For you, Lily." Her vision began to blur. The world spun. The driver shouted, "Hang on, lady. There's a safe house nearby." But Elena's eyes were growing heavy. The evidence was safe. She had escaped death again. But as darkness closed in around her, one terrifying thought remained.
The old truck bounced violently down the back roads as Elena lay slumped in the passenger seat, blood soaking through her clothes. Her vision blurred in and out. Every bump sent fresh waves of agony through her wounded side and shoulder. The driver, a tough-looking man in his 50s named Hank, sent by Riley, kept glancing at her with worry. "Stay with me, ma'am. We're almost at the safe house. Just hold on." Elena's hand pressed hard against the gunshot wound in her side. Warm blood seeped between her fingers. She clutched the backpack to her chest like it was her last lifeline. "Lily," she whispered weakly. "I have to get back to Lily." Hank pushed the truck harder. "You will, but right now you gotta fight to stay alive." The safe house was an old hunting cabin deep in the woods, 30 miles from any main road. When they finally arrived, Hank half-carried Elena inside and laid her on a worn couch. He quickly grabbed a first aid kit and started working on her wounds. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness. In her fevered mind, she kept seeing Lily's face, smiling, laughing, then suddenly scared and calling out, "Mommy!" Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, baby. Mommy's trying." Hank managed to stop the worst of the bleeding and bandaged her tightly. "You're lucky," he muttered. "The bullet went through, but you've lost a lot of blood. You need a hospital." "No hospital," Elena said through gritted teeth, forcing herself to sit up. "They'll find me there." She looked at the backpack. Despite everything, it was still intact. Riley arrived 20 minutes later, out of breath and carrying a laptop. "Elena, thank God you're alive." He knelt beside her. "I've been monitoring their communications. Marcus is furious. He's mobilized every man he has. They're tearing the city apart looking for you. Victor Lang even canceled all his meetings and went underground." Elena's voice was weak but filled with steel. "Then we end this tonight." Riley shook his head. "You're in no condition to move. You can barely stand." Elena slowly stood up, swaying but refusing to fall. Blood stained the bandages, but her eyes burned with determination. "I've been running for 9 years, hiding, pretending to be someone I'm not. Tonight, I stop running." She turned to both men. "I need one last favor. Get this evidence to the right people, but not through official channels yet. Send encrypted copies to every major news outlet, to honest cops David knows, and to international agencies. Make sure Victor can't bury it." Riley nodded. "I can do that, but what about you?" Elena picked up the silver necklace with the broken chain and put it around her neck again. "I'm going to give Marcus exactly what he wants." Hank and Riley stared at her in shock. "You're going to surrender?" Hank asked. Elena smiled faintly, a smile full of pain and quiet power. "No, I'm going to walk straight into the lion's den and burn it from the inside." She gave them the location, the same warehouse near the port where it had all started 9 years ago. "Tell David to meet me there with backup, but only after I send the signal. If I don't make it, make sure the world knows the truth." Riley's eyes filled with respect and fear. "You're the bravest person I've ever met." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, the bravest people are the ones who keep fighting even when they're broken. That's what mothers do." 2 hours later, under a pouring rain, Elena stood alone outside the massive warehouse. She was pale, barely able to walk straight, but she walked with purpose. The backpack was on her back, but it now contained only copies. The real evidence was already spreading across the internet like wildfire, thanks to Riley. She pushed open the heavy metal door. Inside, the warehouse was dimly lit. Marcus stood in the center, surrounded by at least 15 armed men. Victor Lang sat in a chair behind him like a king on a throne. When Marcus saw her, a cruel smile spread across his face. "Look who finally came home," he mocked. "You look terrible, Elena. Ready to beg for your daughter's life?" Elena stopped 10 feet away. Rain dripped from her hair and clothes. Blood stained her side. She looked Marcus straight in the eyes. "I'm not here to beg." Victor Lang leaned forward, his voice smooth and dangerous. "Then why are you here, Miss Harper? To die?" Elena slowly took off the backpack and dropped it at her feet. "I'm here to end this, once and for all." She reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. With one press, she sent the signal to Riley and David. Then she looked at Marcus again. "You took 9 years of my life. You threatened my daughter. You destroyed so many families. But you made one mistake." She stepped closer, her voice rising with raw emotion. "You underestimated a mother's love." Marcus laughed and raised his gun. "Enough talk." At that exact moment, the warehouse doors burst open from multiple sides. David and a team of trusted officers stormed in, guns drawn. "FBI, drop your weapons!" Chaos exploded. Gunfire erupted across the warehouse. Elena dropped to the ground as bullets flew overhead. She crawled toward Victor, ignoring the pain tearing through her body. Marcus turned his gun toward Elena, but before he could fire, David tackled him from the side. The two men crashed to the floor in a violent struggle. Elena reached Victor Lang. With the last of her strength, she grabbed his collar and looked into his eyes. "You will never hurt another child again," she whispered fiercely. Victor tried to push her away, but Elena held on, her broken body fueled by pure willpower. Outside, sirens wailed as more backup arrived. In the middle of the firefight, Elena's vision started to fade again. She saw flashes, Lily's smile, the 17 girls she saved years ago, David's face, her own reflection as a fearless young woman. She whispered one last time, "I refused to break." Then everything went black. The battle was over, but whether Elena would live to see the victory, no one knew yet. Gunfire echoed through the old warehouse like thunder. Sparks flew as bullets ricocheted off metal containers. David and his team exchanged heavy fire with Marcus's men, while Elena lay on the cold concrete floor, blood pooling beneath her. She could barely move. The gunshot wound in her side burned like fire. Her vision was fading in and out, but she refused to close her eyes. Through the chaos, she saw Marcus and David locked in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Marcus was stronger, slamming David against a metal pillar. David's gun flew from his hand. Elena's heart clenched. "No," she whispered. With every ounce of strength left in her broken body, she began crawling toward them. Each inch felt like a mile. Pain tore through her, but she kept going. Marcus raised his fist to deliver a final blow to David when suddenly, bang! One of Marcus's own men accidentally shot him in the leg while trying to hit a police officer. Marcus roared in pain and staggered backward. David seized the moment. He tackled Marcus to the ground and pinned him. "It's over," David shouted. But it wasn't over for Elena. Victor Lang had slipped away in the chaos. He was heading toward a back exit, carrying a small black case, probably the last remaining physical evidence he wanted to destroy.
Elena saw him. She forced herself to her feet, swaying dangerously. Blood dripped from her fingers onto the floor. "Victor!" she screamed, her voice raw and broken. Victor turned, surprised to see her still alive. He pulled out a pistol and pointed it at her. "You should have stayed dead 9 years ago," he snarled. Elena stood there, barely able to stand, but her eyes were blazing with defiance. "You destroyed so many lives," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "You took those girls. You took my peace. You threatened my daughter, but you will never take my courage." Victor laughed coldly and tightened his finger on the trigger. At that moment, Elena did something no one expected. She charged straight at him. Victor fired. The bullet hit her in the shoulder. She staggered but didn't stop. She crashed into him with all her remaining strength. Both of them fell hard to the ground. The black case flew from his hands and skidded across the floor. They struggled desperately. Victor was much stronger, but Elena fought like a mother protecting her child. She clawed at his face, kneed him, and finally grabbed a loose metal pipe lying nearby. With a scream of pure rage and pain, she swung it hard across his head. Victor collapsed unconscious. Elena fell beside him, gasping for breath. Blood was everywhere now, her side, her shoulder, her hands. The warehouse slowly fell silent as the last of Marcus's men were handcuffed. David ran to her, dropping to his knees. "Elena! Oh God! Elena, stay with me!" He pressed his hands against her wounds, tears in his eyes. "Help is coming! Just hold on! Please, you can't leave us now!" Elena looked up at him, her face pale, lips trembling. She weakly raised her bloodied hand and touched his face. "David, tell Lily Mommy kept her promise. Tell her she made me brave." Her eyes began to close. David's voice broke. "Elena, no! Fight! You always fight! You don't dare leave Lily without her mother!" Tears streamed down his face as he held her. Sirens wailed louder outside. Paramedics rushed in, but Elena's body went limp in David's arms.
The warehouse fell into an eerie silence as the last echoes of gunfire died away. Red and blue lights from police cars and ambulances flashed through the broken windows, painting the bloody floor in shifting colors. David knelt on the cold concrete, cradling Elena's limp body in his arms. Her head rested against his chest. Blood continued to seep through the makeshift bandages on her side and shoulder. "Elena, please," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You survived 9 years. You survived the chase. You survived everything. Don't leave now. Lily needs you." Paramedics rushed in, pushing David gently aside. They worked frantically, cutting away her blood-soaked clothes, applying pressure, starting IV lines. "Gunshot wounds to the side and shoulder. Significant blood loss. She's unconscious," one of them shouted. David stood back, hands covered in Elena's blood, watching helplessly as they loaded her onto a stretcher. His eyes never left her pale face. As they wheeled her toward the ambulance, Elena's fingers twitched slightly. Her eyes fluttered open for just a second. "Lily," she breathed so softly that only David heard it. He stepped forward quickly and grabbed her hand. "I'll bring her to you," he promised, tears streaming down his face. "You fight, Elena. You fight like you always have." The ambulance doors slammed shut. Sirens screamed into the rainy night as it sped away toward the hospital. Meanwhile, in Portland, Claire sat in the living room with Lily. The little girl hadn't slept properly for days. She kept clutching her favorite teddy bear and asking the same question every hour. "When is Mommy coming back?" Claire tried to smile, but her eyes were red from crying. "Soon, sweetheart. Mommy is doing something very important to keep everyone safe." Lily looked out the window at the rain. "She said she would call every day, but she didn't call today." Claire pulled her niece into a tight hug, fighting back her own tears. At that exact moment, David's number flashed on Claire's phone. She answered quickly, stepping into the kitchen so Lily wouldn't hear. "David, how is she?"
David's voice was heavy and broken. "She's in surgery right now. It's bad, Claire. Really bad. 2 gunshot wounds. She lost a lot of blood. The doctors, they said it's touch and go." Claire covered her mouth, tears spilling instantly. "Oh God, what do I tell Lily?" David was silent for a long moment. "Tell her the truth, but gently. Tell her that her mommy is the bravest woman in the world, and that she's fighting with everything she has, just like she promised." In the hospital waiting room, David sat with his head in his hands. Riley arrived shortly after, looking exhausted. The evidence is everywhere now. Major news channels already picked it up. Victor Lang and Marcus have been arrested. The whole trafficking ring is collapsing. International agencies are getting involved. Elena, she did it. David nodded slowly, but there was no joy in his eyes. She did it, but at what cost? Hours passed like years. Finally, a tired surgeon walked into the waiting room, still in scrubs. David and Riley stood up immediately. The doctor took a deep breath. "She made it through surgery. We removed both bullets, but she lost a massive amount of blood and her body is extremely weak. She's in a coma now. The next 48 hours are critical. If she wakes up, there's a good chance she'll recover. But if not..." He didn't finish the sentence. David felt his knees weaken. He leaned against the wall for support. "Can I see her?" The doctor nodded. "Just for a few minutes." Elena lay in the ICU bed, pale and still, surrounded by machines beeping softly. Tubes ran into her arms. The silver necklace with the broken chain still rested around her neck. The nurses hadn't removed it. David sat beside her bed and gently took her hand. "You did it, Elena. Victor and Marcus are finished. Those girls, they're going to be safe because of you. The world is hearing your story right now." He paused, voice thick with emotion. "But Lily needs her mother more than the world needs a hero. So please, come back to us. Come back to your little girl." He leaned down and pressed his forehead against her hand. "I never stopped loving you, even when I thought you were gone. Please don't leave me again." Outside the hospital, rain continued to fall. Back in Portland, Claire finally sat Lily down. "Sweetheart, Mommy got hurt while she was trying to help a lot of people. She's in the hospital right now. The doctors are taking very good care of her." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Is Mommy going to be okay?" Claire pulled her close. "I don't know, baby, but your mommy is the strongest person I know. She loves you more than anything in this world, and right now, she's fighting to come home to you." Lily buried her face in Claire's shoulder and whispered the words Elena had taught her. "Be brave, Mommy, just like you told me." Music swells with powerful, heartbreaking emotion, then holds on a long, tense note. Elena lay motionless in the hospital bed. The evidence had done its job. The bad guys had been stopped, but the woman who refused to break was now fighting the biggest battle of her life. Would she open her eyes again? Would she hold her daughter once more? The whole world was about to find out.
2 weeks had passed since that bloody night in the warehouse. The world had changed. Victor Lang and Marcus Hale were behind bars, facing multiple life sentences. Their entire criminal empire had crumbled. News channels across America and Europe ran headlines day after day. "Brave whistleblower exposes human trafficking and arms network. Single mother risked everything to save others." But Elena Harper's name was still unknown to most people. She had asked David and Riley to keep her identity protected for now. She didn't want fame. She only wanted peace. In the intensive care unit of Seattle General Hospital, Elena still lay unconscious. Machines beeped steadily around her. Her body was healing slowly, but she remained in a deep coma. Doctors said the next few days would decide everything. Every single day, David sat by her bedside for hours. Sometimes he talked to her, sometimes he just held her hand in silence. On the 14th day, Claire brought Lily to the hospital for the first time.
The little girl walked into the room holding her teddy bear tightly. When she saw her mother lying so still in the big hospital bed, Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Mommy?" she whispered. Claire gently lifted her so she could sit on the edge of the bed. Lily reached out and touched Elena's hand. "Mommy, you said you would come back. You promised." She leaned close to Elena's ear and spoke the words her mother had taught her. "Be brave, Mommy. I'm waiting for you." Then Lily did something that broke everyone's heart. She took off the little friendship bracelet she had made at school, pink and blue beads with a small heart charm, and carefully tied it around her mother's wrist, right next to the hospital band. "This is for you," she said softly, "so you remember me when you wake up." David turned away, wiping tears from his eyes. Even the nurse in the room had to look down. That night, something shifted. At 3:17 a.m., the monitors in Elena's room began to change. Her fingers twitched. Then her eyelids fluttered. A weak but clear voice broke the silence of the ICU. "Lily!" The nurse rushed in. David, who had been sleeping in the chair beside the bed, woke up instantly. "Elena?" he whispered, his voice full of disbelief and joy. Elena's eyes opened slowly. They were tired, pained, but alive. She looked at David and managed the faintest smile. "I didn't break," she whispered hoarsely. David laughed through his tears and kissed her forehead. "No, you didn't. You never do." The next morning was one of the most beautiful moments of Elena's life. The hospital staff allowed Lily to visit again. When the little girl walked into the room and saw her mother awake, she froze for a second, then ran straight into her arms. "Mommy, you came back!" Elena, still weak and bandaged, wrapped her arms around her daughter as tightly as she could. Tears streamed down both their faces. "I'm here, baby," Elena whispered, kissing Lily's hair. "I'm here. Mommy's never leaving you again." Lily pulled back and touched the pink and blue bracelet on her mother's wrist. "You wore it!" Elena smiled, her voice thick with emotion. "Of course I did. It gave me strength." As mother and daughter held each other, David stood quietly in the corner, watching with a heart full of love and relief. But there was one more surprise waiting. Later that afternoon, Riley came to the hospital with a laptop. "Elena, there's something you need to see." He turned the screen toward her. On it was a live news conference. 17 young women, the same girls Elena had helped escape 9 years ago, stood together in front of cameras. Many of them were now in their 20s. Some had families. All of them were crying. One of the women stepped forward and spoke directly into the microphone. 9 years ago, a brave woman risked her life to save us. She gave us freedom when we had none. We never knew her real name, but today we want to say thank you. Because of you, we are alive. We are mothers, students, teachers, and survivors. We will never forget what you did. The camera panned across their faces, strong, grateful, free. Elena covered her mouth with her hand as tears rolled down her cheeks. She always believed those girls were safe, but seeing them now, grown and speaking out, was more powerful than anything she could have imagined. David sat beside her and gently wiped her tears. "You changed their lives forever, Elena, and you changed ours too." 6 months later, Elena stood in the backyard of a new house just outside Seattle. The sun was shining. Lily was laughing as she chased butterflies in the grass. The silver necklace with the broken chain still hung around Elena's neck, but now it felt lighter, a symbol of victory instead of pain. David walked up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Are you ready for this?" he asked softly. Elena nodded, smiling. A small group of people waited in the living room. Claire, Riley, Hank, the truck driver, and a few of the survivors who had asked to meet her in person. When Elena walked in, the room went quiet. One by one, the young women came forward and hugged her. No words were needed at first, just tears and tight embraces. Finally, the same woman who had spoken at the news conference looked at Elena and said, "You taught us what real courage looks like, not the absence of fear, but choosing to act even when you're terrified. Thank you for giving us our lives back." Elena's voice trembled as she replied, "I was never a hero. I was just a mother who couldn't stay silent. If my story helps even one person find their courage, then every scar was worth it." Later that evening, as the sun set, Elena sat on the porch with Lily on her lap. "Mommy," asked Lily, "were you really scared?" Elena thought for a moment, then answered honestly, "Yes, baby, I was very scared, but love."
Elena sat on the porch steps of their new home, watching the golden sunset paint the sky. Lily was curled up in her lap, playing with the silver necklace around her mother's neck. "Mommy?" Lily asked softly, "were you really scared when the bad men were chasing you?" Elena smiled gently and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Yes, sweetheart, I was very scared. My heart was beating so fast I thought it would explode. But every time fear tried to win, I thought of you. I thought of your smile, your laugh, and the way you told me to be brave. That's what kept me going." Lily looked up with big, innocent eyes. "So, love makes you brave?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Love doesn't just make you brave, baby. Love is the bravest thing in the world." David stepped out onto the porch carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. He sat down beside them, wrapping one arm around Elena. For the first time in years, the 3 of them felt like a real family. But there was still one secret Elena had never told anyone. Not David, not Riley, not even the survivors. That night, after Lily was asleep, Elena sat alone at the kitchen table. She opened her old metal box one last time. Inside was the faded photograph from 9 years ago, and something else. A small, sealed envelope. She had written it the night she disappeared 9 years ago, thinking she might never come back. With trembling hands, she opened it and began to read the letter she had written to her unborn daughter. "My dearest Lily, if you are reading this, it means I didn't make it home. I want you to know that I didn't leave because I didn't love you. I left because I loved you too much to let you grow up in a world where monsters win. 9 years ago, I made a choice. I chose to save 17 girls who had no one else. I chose to fight so that no other mother would have to feel the fear I felt. I'm sorry I won't be there to see your first steps, hear your first words, or hold you when you cry. But please remember this. You were my reason to be brave. You were my strength when I had none left. Even if I'm gone, carry this in your heart. Courage isn't loud, it's quiet. It's a mother who refuses to look away. It's a woman who stands up even when she's broken. I love you more than all the stars in the sky. Be kind, be strong, and when fear comes, refuse to break. Forever yours, Mommy." Elena folded the letter, tears falling freely onto the paper. She had written this when she was pregnant with Lily and thought she was going to die. But she didn't die. She survived. She came back. And in that moment, she realized the most beautiful truth of all. The real plot twist wasn't in the evidence, or the arrests, or even the dramatic rescue. The real miracle was this. The woman who once had to fake her own death, the woman who gave up everything to save strangers, was now sitting in a warm kitchen holding a letter she never had to give her daughter. She had broken the cycle. She had won. Elena stood up, walked to Lily's room, and quietly placed the letter inside her daughter's memory box, not as a goodbye, but as a reminder of how strong love can be. Then she returned to the porch where David was waiting. He looked at her and asked softly, "You okay?" Elena took his hand and smiled through her tears. "I'm more than okay. I'm home." Closing narration. Elena Harper's story is not just about surviving danger, it's about what happens when one ordinary woman refuses to stay silent. She taught us that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite the fear. That real strength is often hidden behind soft smiles, tired eyes, and quiet mothers who love their children more than their own safety. And most importantly, she showed the world that even when everything is taken from you, your name, your past, your peace, you can still choose to rise. To every person listening right now, if you're facing something that scares you, if you feel broken, tired, or powerless, remember Elena. Remember the woman who refused to break. Your story isn't over yet. Your courage still has the power to change lives, maybe even lives you'll never meet. So stand up, speak up, love fiercely, and when the darkness comes, refuse to break. Because somewhere out there, a little girl named Lily is growing up knowing that her mommy didn't just survive, she showed the world what unbreakable really means.